There comes a moment in life when everything seems to collapse at once. The plans you built fall apart, the people you trusted disappoint you, and the ground beneath your feet feels unstable. It is in those moments, when the storm howls the loudest, that your ability to remain calm is truly tested. Most people panic, grasping for control, desperate to put the pieces back together. But the Stoics understood a deeper truth. They knew that chaos is not something to fear. It is the natural state of the world, a tide that rises and falls beyond our command. They taught that peace does not come from silencing the storm but from learning to stand firmly within it, untouched by its fury. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the universe is change, and our life is what our thoughts make of it. These words carry immense power. The Stoics believed that our suffering does not come from events themselves but from the judgments we place on them. When everything around you crumbles, the instinct is to say this is unbearable, this is too much, this should not happen. But the Stoics would invite us to step back, to take a breath, and to challenge that instinct. They would ask us to see that events are neither good nor bad on their own, they simply are. It is our interpretation, our resistance, that turns them into torment. Picture yourself standing in the center of chaos. There is noise, anger, uncertainty, and fear all around. Most people let these forces seep inside them until they break. But what if you could become like a rock in the sea, unmoved by crashing waves? This is the heart of Stoic calmness. It is the understanding that no matter how wild the storm outside, you still have authority over your mind, over your thoughts, over how you respond. That inner authority is unshakable if you choose to strengthen it. To begin building this calm, the first practice is awareness. When your mind starts to spiral with what-ifs and worst-case scenarios, pause. Notice the thoughts, but do not merge with them. This simple act of observing, rather than reacting, creates space between you and the chaos. The Stoics knew that peace begins with this space. Seneca said that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. By learning to see the difference between what is happening and the story we are telling ourselves about it, we loosen the grip of fear. This is not about suppressing your feelings or pretending everything is fine. It is about giving yourself room to process reality without drowning in it. The world may be falling apart, but you do not have to fall apart with it. Imagine saying to yourself, yes, this is painful, yes, this is difficult, but I will not add unnecessary suffering by letting panic take over. This inner stance transforms chaos into a training ground for resilience. The first step to remaining calm when everything collapses is to reclaim your mind. No one, not even the worst of circumstances, can take that from you unless you give it away. This is what the Stoics trained for every day. They did not wait for peace to arrive. They built it within themselves so that when the storm came, they could stand unbroken. If the first step to remaining calm in the face of chaos is reclaiming your mind, the second step is to accept the reality of the situation as it is, not as you wish it to be. This sounds simple, but it is one of the hardest disciplines a human being can practice. The Stoics understood that most of our suffering comes not from what actually happens to us, but from our resistance to what happens. We argue with life. We tell ourselves that this shouldn't be happening, that it isn't fair, that things must go back to the way they were. And yet, the world does not bend to our demands. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "Do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish that what happens happen the way it happens. Then you will be happy." This is not resignation. It is wisdom. The Stoics were not encouraging us to be passive or to stop striving for better. They were teaching us to distinguish between what is within our power and what is beyond it. When you stop fighting the unchangeable, you conserve your energy for what you can influence, your choices, your actions, your response. Think about it. How much time do we spend replaying the past, wishing it were different? How much energy do we waste imagining the worst possible futures? This is how chaos multiplies within us. Epictetus said, "Some things are up to us and some are not." If you can master the art of seeing this clearly, you will carry an anchor in the roughest seas. You cannot stop the storm, but you can refuse to be tossed around by it. Here's a practical exercise the Stoics would recommend. When you feel the rising panic of losing control, sit down with a pen and paper. Draw 2 columns. On the left, write down everything that is outside your control: the behavior of others, the outcome of events, the passing of time. On the right, write down what is fully within your control: your words, your attitude, your actions in this moment. Then, make a conscious choice to let go of the left column. Do this daily if you need to. Over time, you will train your mind to focus only on what is truly yours to direct. This practice does more than reduce stress. It creates an inner stillness, even in the midst of external turmoil. You start to understand that the world will do what the world does, and no amount of resistance will rewrite that reality. But you are not powerless. You are the captain of your inner ship. You can navigate the storm with grace, no matter how fierce the winds become. Seneca compared life's challenges to a fire. They can consume you or they can forge you. Acceptance does not mean giving up. It means allowing the fire to shape you without burning you to ash. When you stop resisting what is, you free yourself from endless cycles of anger and grief. You discover a kind of calm that cannot be touched by the outside world. The Stoics trained for this every single day, not because it was easy but because it was essential. They knew that calmness is not a gift handed to you by life when things are good. It is a skill you cultivate precisely when life is hard. It is a choice you make in every moment, to surrender what you cannot change and to fully own what you can. If acceptance is the foundation of calm, then the next step is building unshakable mental discipline. Chaos in the world becomes chaos in our minds only if we allow it to enter and dominate us. The Stoics were masters of training their thoughts, understanding that the mind is like a garden. If left unattended, weeds of fear, anger, and despair will grow wild. But if you cultivate it with care, planting seeds of reason and virtue, it becomes a sanctuary where even the harshest storms cannot reach. Marcus Aurelius spent countless nights writing to himself, reminding his mind of what truly matters. He said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Think about this deeply. The world may take away your job, your possessions, or even your health, but no one can take away your ability to choose your response. This is why the Stoics spoke of the mind as a fortress, a place that no one can enter unless you grant them access. In our modern world, our minds are constantly bombarded with noise, notifications, breaking news, opinions, criticisms. It feels impossible to find stillness when the world demands our attention every second. But here is where Stoicism offers a radical solution: to consciously withdraw, even for a few moments, and reclaim your inner space. Epictetus taught his students to pause before reacting, to breathe before speaking, to think before judging. He knew that between stimulus and response, there is a choice, and that choice determines everything. Try this. When you feel overwhelmed, take a deliberate pause. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and remind yourself, this moment is mine. I choose my response. It may sound simple, but this tiny practice builds immense strength over time. It trains your mind to stop being dragged by every passing wave of emotion and instead stand like a rock, unmoved by the tide. Seneca warned about emotional reactivity, saying, "He who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary." How often do we multiply our pain by reacting too quickly, by catastrophizing situations, by assuming the worst? Discipline of the mind means refusing to live in imagined futures or to be enslaved by immediate emotions. It means training yourself to observe without judgment, to delay reaction until wisdom has a chance to speak. Let's make it practical. Start each morning by setting an intention. Today, I will guard my mind. This can involve limiting your exposure to things that inflame you, whether it's social media, toxic conversations, or needless arguments. It can mean journaling your worries instead of letting them dominate your thoughts. It can even mean reading a passage from a philosopher or a spiritual text that recenters you. Over time, these habits shape your mind into a place of strength and serenity. Imagine walking through chaos while carrying this inner discipline. Someone insults you. You observe it without taking it personally. A sudden crisis unfolds. You pause, breathe, and decide your next step with clarity instead of panic. This is not suppression of emotion, it is mastery of it. You feel everything, but you are ruled by nothing. The Stoics knew that freedom begins in the mind. No tyrant, no disaster, no tragedy can take away your ability to control how you interpret and respond to life. And when you truly embrace this, you discover a deep and lasting calm, a calm that does not depend on perfect circumstances but on the strength you build within yourself. If mental discipline teaches us how to guard our inner fortress, then resilience is what helps us rebuild when the walls have been shaken. The Stoics understood that life will bring not only inconveniences but crushing losses, heartbreaks, and moments that threaten to break us completely. Yet they taught that calmness in the face of disaster does not come from pretending the pain isn't there. It comes from transforming that pain into fuel for growth. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is perhaps one of the most radical and liberating ideas of Stoicism, that every obstacle we encounter can be turned into an opportunity. Instead of viewing challenges as interruptions, we can see them as teachers, each one revealing something about our character, our patience, and our courage. Think about it. When everything seems to be falling apart, when your plans fail, when people betray you, when life feels unfair, what do? Most people collapse under the weight of those moments. They get lost in despair, replaying the "why me" question over and over. But the Stoics challenged us to ask a different question: what can I learn from this? How can this make me stronger? This doesn't mean downplaying suffering or pretending that loss doesn't hurt. Seneca, who faced exile, political persecution, and the death of loved ones, was deeply familiar with pain. Yet he wrote, "Fire tests gold, adversity tests brave men." For the Stoics, pain was not an enemy to avoid but a forge that shapes the soul. They believed that a person cannot achieve true strength or wisdom without facing hardships. Let's bring this to the present. Imagine losing your job unexpectedly. The immediate reaction might be panic, anger, or self-blame. But what if, instead, you paused and thought, what new path could this open for me? How can I use this time to grow? This reframing turns the situation from a dead end into a potential beginning. The same can be applied to personal relationships, health struggles, or any crisis. The power lies not in controlling the event but in reshaping how we experience it. A practical Stoic exercise for this is called premeditation of adversity. Each morning, take a few minutes to imagine the possible difficulties of the day, delays, conflicts, even unexpected losses. By doing this, you prepare your mind not with pessimism, but with readiness. When difficulties come, they don't catch you off guard. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily, writing, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, 'Today I shall meet with meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly people. But none of them can harm me.'" Resilience also requires practicing detachment, not in the sense of not caring, but in understanding what is truly yours to control. You cannot stop the storms of life, but you can choose how to sail through them. When you let go of the illusion that everything should go your way, you gain a surprising freedom, the ability to move through loss without being consumed by it. Picture this: chaos surrounds you, people are panicking, everything feels uncertain. Yet you stand still inside yourself. You acknowledge the fear, you feel the pain, but you do not let them own you. This inner stability, this ability to remain grounded even in the storm, is the essence of Stoic calmness. Resilience is not about being unshakable because nothing affects you. It is about being unshakable because you have trained your mind to stay rooted in wisdom and perspective. And when you embrace this, you no longer see chaos as the enemy. You see it as the training ground for your strength. If resilience is the armor that shields us from the blows of life, then gratitude is the medicine that heals the wounds those blows leave behind. The Stoics did not talk about gratitude as a vague sense of being thankful. They saw it as a disciplined practice, one that reframes how we view even the harshest realities of existence. It's easy to be grateful when life is gentle. But the Stoic challenge is this: can you still be grateful when the world around you feels like it's collapsing? Marcus Aurelius gave us a clue to how this works. In his Meditations, he wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." These were not empty words. This was a man who lost children, faced betrayal, fought wars, and lived under the constant shadow of death. Yet he trained himself every day to see life, even with all its pain, as a gift. Why does this matter when chaos strikes? Because gratitude changes what your mind focuses on. When we are overwhelmed, our thoughts spiral toward everything that's wrong, the injustice, the loss, the fear. Gratitude interrupts that spiral. It reminds us that even in tragedy, there is something left to hold on to. Maybe it's the lessons learned, the people who stand by us, or simply the fact that we are still here, breathing, able to try again. Seneca once said, "He who does not gratefully enjoy what he has now is not likely to be grateful for what he gets later." This is a deep truth. Gratitude is not about waiting for better circumstances. It's about finding the value in this moment, even if this moment is painful. Here's a practical exercise. At the end of each day, write down 3 things you're grateful for. Don't choose only the obvious things like health or family, go deeper. Write about the challenges, too. Perhaps you're grateful for a conflict at work because it revealed your strength to remain calm. Maybe you're grateful for a failed plan because it pushed you toward a path you would not have chosen otherwise. Over time, this habit rewires your brain to look for meaning, not misery. Gratitude also shifts our perspective on control. When disaster strikes, we obsess over what we've lost or what could have been. But gratitude pulls us back to the present, grounding us in what still remains. Epictetus taught, "Do not demand that things happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do happen, and your life will go smoothly." Gratitude helps us live this teaching. It doesn't erase the pain, but it loosens its grip on us. Now let's add another layer: perspective shifting. One of the most powerful Stoic techniques for staying calm is stepping back from the immediate situation and seeing the bigger picture. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself of the vastness of time and space. He wrote, "Consider the whole of time and the whole of substance, and that all individual things are in relation to this one universe." This reflection can be transformative. When you view your problem as part of a much larger story, it becomes smaller, lighter, and more manageable. Imagine you're facing financial ruin. From a narrow view, it feels like the end of the world. But take the broader perspective: people have rebuilt their lives after far greater losses. History is full of individuals who rose from devastation to create new paths. When you widen your lens, you see that this is not the end, it's a chapter. The combination of gratitude and perspective gives you an unshakable foundation. Gratitude keeps you connected to what's good and meaningful. Perspective prevents you from drowning in the smallness of your current pain. Together, they create calmness, not a shallow calmness that ignores reality, but a deep, steady peace that can endure even the worst storms. Imagine living like this: you wake up in a world that feels like it's falling apart. But instead of reacting with fear, you take a breath. You list the things you still have: your resilience, your values, the lessons learned from suffering. You step back and see your pain as part of a much bigger journey. Suddenly, you are no longer trapped in the chaos. You are navigating it with strength. If the previous part was about cultivating gratitude and perspective as tools for inner peace, this one focuses on something equally vital: building unshakable daily rituals. The Stoics understood that resilience is not born in the heat of crisis. It is forged long before the storm comes, in the quiet repetition of small, deliberate practices. You cannot expect to stand calm when everything crumbles around you if you have not prepared your mind in advance. The Stoic life, in essence, is a life of preparation. Marcus Aurelius did not wait for chaos to test him. He rehearsed it in his thoughts every morning. He would wake up and remind himself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. This was not pessimism. It was mental training. He was telling himself, expect difficulties. Don't be surprised by them. And because he prepared for them mentally, they had less power to disrupt his inner balance when they arrived. This is where the Stoic idea of premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils, comes in. Each day, they imagined the worst things that could happen. They asked, what if I lose my job? What if I fall ill? What if someone I love betrays me? At first glance, this seems dark, even depressing. But the Stoics did this not to wallow in fear, but to loosen its grip. They believe that imagining loss makes you more grateful for what you have and less vulnerable when life inevitably takes something away. Epictetus taught, when you are about to delight in anything, remind yourself what kind of thing it is. If you are fond of a person, remind yourself that you love a mortal, thus you will not be disturbed if they die. For us, in a world where loss is often hidden or denied, this feels uncomfortable. But this daily confrontation with reality strengthens the mind. It teaches us not to cling desperately to things we cannot keep. Think of it this way, a soldier does not learn to stay calm on the battlefield by thinking happy thoughts. He trains in conditions that mimic the chaos of war. The Stoic trains the same way, but in the battlefield of the mind. Here's a practical exercise. Spend 5 minutes each morning in quiet reflection. Imagine one thing you fear losing, your health, your career, your possessions. Sit with that feeling. Don't try to push it away. Instead, ask yourself, if this happened, what virtues would I need to face it? Could I remain just? Could I remain courageous? This transforms fear into preparation. It reminds you that while life can take away almost anything, it cannot take away your ability to choose your response. Alongside mental rehearsal, the Stoics relied on anchoring rituals to stabilize their emotions. For Marcus Aurelius, writing was his anchor. His meditations were never meant to be published, they were his private therapy. Through writing, he examined his fears, challenged his impulses, and reminded himself of what truly mattered. This is a practice you can adopt today. When you feel overwhelmed, journal. Ask yourself, what is in my control? What is out of my control? What would a wiser version of me do in this situation? Another powerful ritual is voluntary discomfort. Seneca recommended that we occasionally deprive ourselves of comfort, to sleep on a hard bed, eat simple food, or wear plain clothes, to remind ourselves how little we actually need. Set aside a certain number of days, he wrote, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, and say to yourself, is this what I feared? This exercise breaks the illusion that comfort equals safety. It teaches you that you can endure discomfort, and that you will still be you, even without the luxuries you think you need. These rituals may seem small, but over time, they forge a mind that doesn't shatter under stress. When disaster strikes, you do not fall into panic because you have already practiced living without the things you fear losing. You do not collapse when criticized because you have rehearsed how to meet hostility with patience. You do not crumble when life surprises you, because you expect surprises every day. Imagine how different your life could be if you adopted even one of these rituals. What if you started each morning with a quiet reflection on what you can control? What if you ended each night with gratitude for what remains? What if, instead of avoiding discomfort, you leaned into it and learned from it? These are not abstract ideas. They are daily practices, as real and as grounding as brushing your teeth or tying your shoes. And like any habit, their power grows the more consistently you do them. Calmness, then, is not an accident. It is the natural result of preparing your mind, day after day, for the storms that will inevitably come. At this point, we've explored how mental rehearsal and daily rituals build the foundation for inner peace, but the Stoics understood that staying calm during chaos required something deeper, living by unshakable principles. For them, these principles were the 4 cardinal virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. These weren't abstract philosophical concepts, they were the bedrock of every decision, every reaction, every moment of their lives. When everything around you falls apart, virtues become your compass. They remind you who you are and guide you when fear, anger, or despair threaten to take control. Let's start with wisdom. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Wisdom, for the Stoics, is the clear understanding of what is within your control and what is not. It means seeing reality as it is, without illusion or denial. When the world crumbles, you lose a job, a relationship ends, or a tragedy strikes, wisdom prevents you from asking, "Why me?" Instead, you ask, "What is mine to do now?" Wisdom cuts through the noise of panic and reorients you toward action, toward growth, toward what truly matters. Consider a modern example. Imagine someone facing a financial crisis. Without wisdom, they spiral into fear, blame, and self-pity. With wisdom, they acknowledge the situation, strip it down to facts, and take purposeful steps toward rebuilding. The crisis doesn't magically vanish, but their clarity of thought keeps them steady. This is the Stoic way, responding with reason instead of reacting with emotion. Next is courage, and this is where many of us stumble. We often think of courage as something reserved for heroes on battlefields, but the Stoics saw courage in every moment of life. It takes courage to face uncertainty without giving up. It takes courage to speak the truth when others want you silent. It takes courage to get out of bed when grief is heavy. Seneca wrote, "Sometimes even to live is an act of courage." When the world feels like it's collapsing, courage whispers, "You can take one more step." It doesn't promise ease, it promises that you won't face hardship with cowardice. Now let's talk about justice, perhaps the most misunderstood Stoic virtue. Justice isn't just about laws or fairness, it's about how you treat others, even in times of personal crisis. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself, "What injures the hive injures the bee." In other words, when you lash out at others in your pain, you harm yourself too. Justice calls you to stay kind, to help where you can, and to remember that everyone you meet is also fighting their own battles. This virtue is what prevents chaos from making us selfish or cruel. Even when life feels unfair, justice keeps your humanity intact. Finally, there's temperance, the virtue of balance. When fear hits, many of us swing wildly between extremes, overindulging in distractions to numb ourselves or overworking to escape our thoughts. Temperance is the discipline to stay centered. It's choosing moderation over excess, calm over frenzy, presence over avoidance. Epictetus warned against letting pleasure or pain dominate us, teaching instead that true freedom comes from mastering our impulses. Here's a practical way to apply these virtues in the middle of chaos. Take a few minutes when you feel overwhelmed and ask yourself, what does wisdom require of me right now? What would courage look like in this moment? How can I act justly toward others, even in my pain? Where do I need temperance? Where am I overreacting or overindulging? This simple practice can turn a breakdown into an opportunity for growth. It shifts your focus from, "How do I stop this chaos?" to, "How do I remain the kind of person I want to be in this chaos?" Think about the last time everything felt like it was falling apart. Did you have a framework to guide you, or did you react on instinct? The Stoics give us a framework, a moral compass that keeps us steady even when emotions threaten to drown us. Imagine living like this. A crisis hits, and instead of spiraling, you pause. You ground yourself in wisdom, gather your courage, choose justice, and practice temperance. You might still feel pain, the Stoics never denied pain, but you don't lose yourself in it. That's the power of these virtues. This is why Marcus Aurelius could lead an empire through war and plague without becoming bitter. This is why Epictetus, born a slave, could rise above his suffering. They didn't wait for the world to be calm. They created calm within themselves by holding fast to their virtues. If there's one thing the Stoics mastered, it was the art of transforming suffering into strength. They didn't just endure hardships, they reframed them, giving pain a purpose. This reframing is what allowed them to stay calm when everything around them fell apart. To the Stoics, life wasn't about avoiding discomfort or tragedy, it was about using those very experiences as fuel for growth. Let's think about this deeply. When you encounter failure, losing a job, making a costly mistake, or seeing your plans crumble, what's your first reaction? For most people, it's anger, shame, or despair. We fight reality, wishing things had turned out differently. But the Stoics had a different approach. Marcus Aurelius famously wrote, "The impediment to action advances action." What stands in the way becomes the way. What if, instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you asked, "How can this serve me? What can I learn from this?" That single shift in perspective changes everything. To reframe adversity, the Stoics used a powerful practice called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Before facing the day, they would imagine potential difficulties, insults, losses, betrayals, delays. Far from making them pessimistic, this prepared their minds to respond with composure when those challenges inevitably appeared. Think about how liberating this is. Instead of being blindsided by life's hardships, you meet them like an expected guest. You might not welcome the pain, but you've made room for it, and that takes away its power to destroy your peace. Epictetus taught, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." He wasn't saying suffering doesn't hurt. He was saying that our interpretation of suffering, the story we tell ourselves about it, shapes our experience more than the event itself. A failure can be the end of your confidence, or it can be the beginning of your reinvention. A betrayal can harden your heart, or it can teach you the importance of discernment and resilience. The pain remains, but its meaning changes, and meaning is everything. Here's a practical exercise for reframing. When something painful happens, instead of rushing to judgment, pause and write down 3 possible ways this experience could serve your growth. Maybe it's teaching you patience. Maybe it's showing you where your boundaries need to be stronger. Maybe it's forcing you to let go of something you were clinging to too tightly. By naming these lessons, you stop being a passive victim of your circumstances and become an active participant in your own transformation. The Stoics also embraced voluntary discomfort as a way to prepare their minds for life's inevitable storms. Seneca often practiced sleeping on the floor, wearing rough clothing, or eating very simple meals, asking himself, "Is this what I feared?" The purpose wasn't self-punishment, it was liberation. When you voluntarily step into discomfort, you realize you're stronger than you think. You also reduce the power that fear and uncertainty hold over you. If you can endure hunger for a day or sleep without luxury, then losing comforts won't destroy you. This builds a deep, unshakable confidence that keeps you calm no matter what you lose. Think about how this could look in modern life. What if, once a week, you gave up something you rely on, your phone for a few hours, a favorite indulgence, or even hot showers? Not because you have to, but because you choose to. Suddenly, the things you feared losing lose their grip on you. If you can thrive without them for a short while, you know you can survive without them if life takes them away. This is how voluntary discomfort turns fear into strength. Another crucial part of reframing adversity is adopting the mindset that nothing is inherently good or bad, only our judgment makes it so. A lost opportunity can open the door to something greater. A painful ending can become the foundation for a new beginning. The Stoics trained themselves to look beyond the surface of events, to ask, "What else could this mean?" This habit not only calms the mind but also ignites creativity in the midst of crisis. Let's revisit Marcus Aurelius' perspective. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Imagine applying this to your daily life. You receive criticism at work. Instead of taking it as an attack, you view it as feedback that can make you better. You face rejection. Instead of seeing it as proof of your unworthiness, you view it as redirection toward a better path. The event doesn't change, your story about it does. This reframing doesn't erase pain, but it gives you purpose. And purpose, the Stoics believed, is what allows you to endure anything. Viktor Frankl, a modern echo of this wisdom, wrote, "Those who have a why to live can bear almost any how." The Stoics would agree, your why transforms suffering from meaningless torment into meaningful growth. So the next time life feels unbearable, ask yourself, how can I turn this pain into a teacher? What lesson is hidden here? What strength can I gain from walking through this? This doesn't just help you survive chaos, it helps you rise above it. When chaos drags on, when the storm doesn't pass after a few days or weeks but stretches into months or even years, staying calm feels almost impossible. It's one thing to practice stoicism when facing short-term discomfort, but what about when your entire world seems to unravel piece by piece? This is where the deeper layers of Stoic practice reveal their true power. The Stoics didn't just prepare for temporary challenges, they trained their minds for lifelong endurance. Marcus Aurelius himself ruled an empire while facing endless wars, betrayal from close allies, a devastating plague, and personal tragedies. And yet, his private writings, which we now know as meditations, radiate a sense of inner steadiness. How did he achieve this? Through relentless self-examination, acceptance of reality, and a commitment to living by his principles no matter what surrounded him. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This wasn't just advice, it was his daily lifeline. The first step to enduring long-term chaos is radical acceptance. This doesn't mean giving up or approving of the pain you're experiencing. It means fully acknowledging that what is happening is real and refusing to waste your energy resisting the truth. The Stoics taught that suffering doubles when we add resistance to pain. Instead of saying, "This shouldn't be happening," Marcus would remind himself, "This is happening. Now, how will I respond?" Imagine how much lighter life becomes when you drop the mental struggle of wishing reality were different and instead focus on your response to it. To sustain this mindset over time, the Stoics relied heavily on daily journaling, a tool far more powerful than it seems. Epictetus urged his students to write each day, examining their reactions, their mistakes, and their victories. This practice wasn't for anyone else to read, it was for self-mastery. Journaling creates space between you and your emotions, allowing you to observe them instead of being consumed by them. It helps you see patterns. When do you lose your composure? What triggers your anger or despair? What thoughts strengthen your resolve? Over time, these pages become a mirror, reflecting your growth and reminding you that you are still standing, still learning, still moving forward. Another Stoic tool for enduring prolonged hardship is anchoring yourself to timeless values. When the external world crumbles, the one thing that cannot be taken from you is your commitment to virtue, your dedication to wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. These are unshakable anchors. Seneca wrote, "The wise man is content with himself." He wasn't suggesting we isolate ourselves emotionally, but that we root our sense of worth in who we are, not in what happens to us. Even when life denies you control over your circumstances, you still control your integrity, your attitude, and your effort. To make this practical, create a simple mantra, a phrase that reaffirms your values when chaos pulls you off course. It could be as simple as, "I choose courage over fear. I choose patience over panic. I choose integrity over compromise." Repeat it when the weight of uncertainty threatens to break you. These reminders can become mental lifelines that guide you through the fog of despair. It's also worth noting how the Stoics practiced negative visualization to remain resilient. They deliberately contemplated worst-case scenarios, not to wallow in misery but to train their minds for acceptance. When you've already imagined the loss of comfort, reputation, or even life itself, the actual experience, if it comes, feels less shattering. In this way, preparing for the worst softens the blow and makes gratitude for what remains even stronger. But perhaps the most profound Stoic insight for surviving long-term chaos is this: you are not defined by what happens to you, but by how you choose to live in the midst of it. You can still be kind when others are cruel. You can still be disciplined when everything tempts you to give up. You can still seek beauty and meaning even when surrounded by darkness. Imagine carrying this mindset through your hardest days. You wake up feeling heavy, but you journal your thoughts and anchor yourself in your values. You expect challenges, rudeness, setbacks, unfairness, but you meet them without surprise, as Marcus advised. You reflect on the bigger picture, reminding yourself that this, too, is part of the human experience. And at the end of the day, you know you've done what the Stoics would call living in agreement with nature, acting with wisdom and strength regardless of circumstance. Remaining calm when everything falls apart is not about pretending everything is fine. It's about standing tall in the wreckage, knowing that your spirit is unbreakable. You are not powerless. You hold the ability to choose your response, and that choice is where your freedom lives. If you have followed us through this journey, you now understand that staying calm when everything around you collapses is not an abstract ideal. It is a skill, one that can be trained, nurtured, and refined over time. But now we arrive at the heart of the Stoic way, unifying these practices into a way of life that carries you through any storm, no matter how long it lasts or how dark it feels. The Stoics believe that the foundation of inner calm lies in recognizing what is truly yours and what is not. Epictetus said, "Some things are in our control and others not." It may sound simple, but living by this truth requires relentless practice. When the world crumbles, your career takes an unexpected hit, relationships falter, your health declines, or the very structure of your life feels like it's slipping away, the first thing the mind does is panic, trying to cling to everything at once. But the Stoic mind pauses, breathes, and sorts reality into two categories. What can I act on, and what must I release? This is radical liberation. You stop fighting unwinnable battles, and instead, you channel your strength into the space where your actions matter most. Yet, knowing what to control is only the beginning. True calm comes from daily discipline, from engaging with practices that fortify your mind. This is why Marcus Aurelius wrote Meditations for himself. It wasn't meant to be read by others, it was his private training ground, his way of preparing his mind to endure. Imagine beginning your day as he did, journaling your fears, identifying your weaknesses, and setting intentions to act with courage and virtue. This is not mere writing, this is an act of mental armor building. Over time, this ritual creates a version of you that no insult, no setback, and no tragedy can fully shatter. To build this unbreakable core, the Stoics advised embracing voluntary discomfort, intentionally practicing moments of difficulty so that real hardship does not overwhelm you. Seneca famously slept on hard floors and wore rough clothing to remind himself that comfort is not a guarantee, and that his happiness should not depend on luxury. For you, this could mean fasting for a day, taking a cold shower, or deliberately stepping into situations that stretch you. The purpose is not to suffer for suffering's sake, but to teach yourself that you can withstand more than you think. When life inevitably throws you into discomfort, you will not be shocked, you will be prepared. Another essential practice is reframing your perception of pain and chaos. Marcus Aurelius encouraged himself to see obstacles not as walls but as stepping stones. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This is not positive thinking, this is reality-based thinking. It transforms suffering into a teacher. Instead of asking, "Why me?" you begin to ask, "What can I learn here? How can this make me stronger, wiser, more compassionate?" Over time, this mindset rewires your relationship with adversity. You begin to see even the darkest chapters of your life as opportunities for growth, courage, and depth. But the Stoics did not stop at internal practices. They understood the power of community, of being surrounded by those who challenge and uplift you. Even Marcus Aurelius, an emperor burdened with unimaginable responsibilities, acknowledged that he needed others. He often reminded himself that people are flawed, difficult, and imperfect, and yet they are essential. When you wake up in the morning, he wrote, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant. But I cannot be harmed by them. This is a powerful mental shift. Expecting imperfection reduces disappointment, and reframing relationships as opportunities to practice virtue, Patience, kindness, forgiveness, transforms even the most trying interactions into exercises in character building. As you integrate these practices, imagine building your own Stoic morning ritual. You wake up and sit quietly, reminding yourself of what is in your control. You journal your fears and set intentions for the day. You read a passage from Marcus, Seneca, or Epictetus, letting their words shape your mindset. You prepare yourself mentally for challenges, not with dread, but with readiness. This is how you construct the fortress inside your mind, brick by brick, day by day. And when chaos threatens to pull you apart, return to your mantra, your chosen phrase that brings you back to center. I choose courage over fear. I choose patience over panic. I choose to act with virtue, no matter the cost. Repeat it until it anchors you. In the end, staying calm when the world collapses is not about suppressing your emotions or pretending that pain doesn't hurt. It's about meeting life with resilience, dignity, and an unshakable commitment to live by your values, no matter what. You cannot always stop the storm, but you can become the one who walks through it unbroken. And now, I invite you, what do you do to find peace when everything feels out of control? Share your reflections in the comments. Your insight may be the word someone else needs to hear today. If you found value in this message, consider subscribing to join this journey of Stoic wisdom and personal growth. Together, we can build minds that remain steady, even when the world falls apart.